You guys, welcome back. I'm super pumped that you're back to join me for this because today's lesson is lesson 8 in Saxon 8-7. We are in the second edition of the book. Guys, today we are talking about my favorite thing in math. Parentheses. Percentages. I was just doing order of operations in another video, and so I've got parentheses on my mind. No, we are doing percentages. I almost just did it again. Percentages. Percentages are the same thing as fractions, which are the same thing as decimals. And we are going to talk about how all of these intertwine. Not all of that is going to be in today's lesson, but our introduction is going to be. All right, first things first, a fraction looks like this. Guys, what this is called, this is our, if you have not already, make sure you get your notebook out, turn to the video section or notes section, and you are going to be taking notes while we talk. Guys, this is called our numerator. Oh my gosh, this is I am terrible when I spell on a whiteboard. I have a really hard time seeing what the word should say, so I misspell things. I apologize, but I just want to make sure. I also always abbreviate this, so if I have to spell it out, I just want to make sure. Denominator. Okay, so this is our numerator, this is our denominator. Guys, all a fraction is, so make sure you got that written down, right? All a fraction is part over whole. So you're going to hear me say that a lot, part over whole. Sometimes we do this visually, all right? So visually, I'm going to write this over here, part over whole. So I have a circle here. There are 4 slices in the whole section. I've been doing this 15 years and I still cannot draw a decent looking circle. Okay, so the whole thing has 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, which means the whole thing is 4. I have shaded one of those. That's the part that has been shaded. Therefore, it is 1/4. That is your fraction. So basically, that's how you do it. If you take a look on page 40, you got a drawing that looks like this. I'm not going to redraw this. You're going to see my wonky circles again. Taking a look at this guy. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5 slices of pie in our whole circle, and 2 of them are shaded. So you write that as 2/5. The way we say that is 2/5. Fifths. We always put arts or whatever for this last one. This is also, by the way, a division bar. This guy right here means the same thing as that. Those mean the exact same thing. Now that you're getting up in math, you're going to see less of this and more of this guy right here. All right, so let's take a look at some of these guys here. Example number 2. Which of the following could describe the portion of this rectangle that is shaded? Guys, when you see, so taking a look, this rectangle, if something is shaded, let's talk about this really quick. If I have a big pie and I cut it exactly in half, you heard me say the word half, right? And I shade it, half is the same as 50%. We'll get into more of how percents and decimals intertwine, or percents, decimals, and fractions, how they all intertwine. But this is a really big one that I want you to remember from now until forever. Half is the same as 50%, okay? It's the same thing as if you have half of a dollar, you have 50 cents out of a dollar, right? So that means that it's as a decimal, we write that without the 0 on the end. When we have dollars, we want to write the extra 0 because that shows our 50 cents. But so these are all the same thing, all right? So why I want you to remember that is now that makes it like a good gauge for looking at some of these other products. And if you see this rectangle that we have here, it was shaded a little bit more than half, right? So our options were 1/2, 40%, or 60%. If we're gonna estimate this guy, it's more than half, so we're gonna get rid of that. This is less than half because it's less than 50%, so we're gonna get rid of that. And this would be our best option here. It's 60% is slightly more than 50%. It's a good idea for you to be able to gauge these guys, like looking at them with and using your eyes to kind of estimate what they're gonna be. Particularly when we start doing percentages, like I'm actually really okay with a lot of estimating in percentages. When we get into talking about how this applies to shopping, right? You go to Fred Meyer and you're like, hey, I want that sweater and that video game. And it's $65, right? And You're like, oh, that's 15% off. In situations like that, 15% off. I'm okay if you estimate. I just want a ballpark figure. We'll get into how to solve that later. I don't want to do that right now. But the point of that is for percentages, totally okay if you're estimating, just like we did on that last one where it was about 60%. Okay, so let's take a look at example 3 here. Example 3. You can see that, I'm glad I got this new camera, you guys, so that I can zoom in here. Oh, there we go, that way. All right, so on this guy here, it is it's asking us which mixed number. Now remember, a mixed number is a whole number and the word and means addition, and a fraction. An example would be is if I did like 1 and 1/2. That is a mixed number. You can also write it as an improper fraction where we take this times this plus this. This times this is 2 plus 1 is 3, and then we always use the denominator we're given. So this is an improper fraction. This is a mixed number, okay? Mixed numbers are helpful because that shows where, that helps us know where we're gonna put it on the number line. If you tell me 3 halves, it's gonna take me a little bit to think, oh, that is the same as 1 and 1/2, okay? So coming back up here, I swear all my pencils walk off, you guys, and I use them as little pointers, so bear with me. You guys, if I knew how to edit videos, I would like pause and edit videos where I'm like being a lunatic trying to find things. So I apologize. I don't know how to do that yet. I'm learning. All right, guys. So we know that this decimal does not come between 7 and 8. It's going to come between 8 and 9. 8 and 9. With that said, I'm going to use my little Post-it notes again because I think that was kind of helpful. Actually, why don't I just do this? So it comes between 8 and 9. 8, so it's gonna be less than 9, but greater than 8. So it's gonna be 8 and something, right? Well, we take a look here and we look and we see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes, right? 5 like chunks. That's how many whole chunks we have. How many have we filled in, the parts? We haven't really filled them in, but this is another way of looking at it is 1, 2, right? Because we stop right there. So we've got 2, so 8 and 2/5, 8 and 2/5. Hopefully you see it that way. Guys, where this is really common, and you may have seen your parents see this, is when we're dealing with inches. Now, look right at you. Huh, that was weird. Okay, it's a bummer that we don't use the metric system here in the US because it's a lot easier. But instead we use this imperial system where we do inches and then feet and then yards, right? Part of that comes with when we take an inch ruler, and I have one right here, an inch is broken up into 16 different chunks, 16 different chunks. So you can see on my inch ruler here, do you see how there's like 16 different chunks in between all of these? That one has 32, that's crazy. There's 16 chunks in between like 1 and 2, right? So if I was to mark like right here, that's 2 chunks, right? That's 2 chunks out of 16. So that would be 1 and 2/16. Now keep in mind, we can reduce fractions. We haven't talked about that quite yet. So I'm gonna leave it as 2/16, okay? But knowing this, where you probably see this is on tools. So if your parents are carpenters or mechanics, things like that, you're gonna see like 3/16 of a wrench, or I don't know, I'm just going off of what I've heard my husband say, things like that. But no, you'll see for fixing cars, that's a really common one, right? You've got like the different sizes of bolts and things like that. But that's where knowing your numbers and fractions and breaking this all up is important. So guys, if you have any interest in fixing cars, working with woodworking, anything construction wise, you are gonna need to know your fractions left, right, up, down, okay? So I really want to make sure that you understand those. So with that said, taking a look here now at my book that I've got here, I'm on page 41 if you're following along at home. Because of this new nifty camera, what I can do is move everything around and, okay, bonus, you're gonna eat my dog's butt in the background. Look at that. Look at that little doggy. All right, so everything's always about dogs with me. All right, my other one just looked up. Let's see. Oh, that's upside down. I gotta do it this way. All right, That's my, see, yay, that's my other camera. But look, there's my dog. He's 16, no, he's not 16, he's 12. His name is Scout. He's my baby. Okay, so that's one of my 2 dogs. Well, 3, my husband has a dog too. All right, so anyway, we're talking about inches. Derail. ADD, kids, ADD. All right. So taking a look here, this is what a ruler looks like, and we have 16 chunks typically in between each one of these. This is 1/16. Guys, remember when I said that other one was 2/16? I'm not right where you can see it. It's 2/16. Both the top and the bottom can be divided by 2, and if I do that, I get 1/8. So 2/16 is the exact same thing as 1/8, right? Well, we come back over here and we see 1/8. That must be 2 16 chunks, right? And then we have 3 16 chunks. Then we have 4 16 chunks. Let's talk about that. 4 16 chunks. And the way we'd say that is 4/16, right? 4/16, guys, we can divide those both by 4. This is why it's really important you either know your multiplication tables or have one in front of you, because otherwise you'll be doing this forever. All right, divide those, we get 1/4, and sure enough, that's what this is, 1/4, right? 4/16, 5/16, 6/16, that reduces down. 6/16, those are both even numbers, so we can divide them by 2. We wind up with 3/8, 3/8, and that's what this is. And 7/16, and then 8/16, and 8 is half of 16, so that's half, right? 9/16, 10/16, which reduces down to 5/8. 11, 12. So hopefully that's all making sense here, okay? And sure enough, if we've got this. So let's take a look at this. For example 4, we use an inch ruler to find these guys. Let me deal with my marker here. All right, so let's look at example 4 here, right? So we use an inch ruler to deal with this. So from A until B, it's not 1, right? It's not one whole one, but we know that halfway is 8. 8 out of the 16 dashes, right? So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 14/16. 14/16. Guys, we can reduce that because those are both even numbers, so let's divide by 2. Anytime it's an even number, just cut them in half, right? That's all we're doing. We divide those by 2, we get 7/8. So that is 7/8. 7/8. Now, it's asking us, use the inch ruler to find AB. So from A to B is 7/8. B to C, BC and AC to the, so BC is this guy right here, right? From to there. Now this one's a little tricky because we're not starting at a perfectly even one. The way that I would advise that you do this is, guys, do you see how it's starting at the half here, at the 2.5? It's starting at the half. Let's jump from 2.5 to 1.5, guys. These are my own books, that's why I'm writing in them. Don't write in the books. That's 1 whole inch. From this half to this half, that's 1 whole inch, right? So then we know, oh, that's another half of an inch. And we know half of an inch is 8 out of the 16, so that's 8. Then we've got 9, 10. So we have 1 whole inch, and then we have 10/16. 1 whole inch, and then 10/16. Both of these are even, so they can be divided by 2. What we end up with is 1 5/8. 1 5/8. Another way to do that is to count all these little dashes, and you'll get an improper fraction and then turn that into a mixed number. But I think my method's a little bit easier. All right, so then we're gonna do from A to C. A to C is great because it starts on an even deal. So we know that it goes like this. We've got 1, 2.5 inches because it goes over a half, right? Or 8/16, which is 1/2. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so let's take a look now. What I'd like you to do is pause the video, attempt these practice problems that are that are on this page that are A through I down here, and then come on back and we'll go over those together. All right, so with that said, let's attempt these practice problems. All right, actually I'm gonna bring this back down. It's a little bit easier. All right, what fraction of this circle is not shaded? What fraction of this circle is not shaded? I can't say things today. Is not shaded. Let's take a look. Remember, fractions are whole, part over whole, part over whole. I just scared my dog. Sorry about that, baby. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in our whole, right? Which ones are not shaded? 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 out of 5, that's A, are not shaded, What percent of this circle is not shaded? Guys, we didn't really talk about how to go for percent and all that fun stuff, but let's do a quick lesson on that, okay? So we know that it's 3 out of 5. I want to back up. Let's back up and talk about this. So what you can do here is you can estimate. Until we get into dealing with actual percentages, actually let's not. We're gonna teach you the whole shebang on how to do this because it's pretty easy once you have a fraction. Guys, let's think of factors of 100, right? So, all right, I'm gonna move this. All right, so factors of 100. We know that we've got, I'm making a mess over here. We got 1 times 100. We have 2 times 50, not 3, but 4 times 25. Think if you have 4 quarters, right? 5 times 20, I almost said 10. 10 times 10, you guys, these are all the factors of 100. Guys, if you have a fraction that ends in one of these, give yourself a high five, it's easy, right? We don't have to do anything too complicated. That one that we had was 3 over 5. Here's how we do this. Actually, let me back up and say this. If you have 70 over 100, that's 70%. If you have 17 over 100, 17%. If you have 35 over 100, you have 35%. Gets a little tricky with single digits. You got to be careful here. 9 over 100, you get 9%. I think you're catching on, right? If you have something over 100, you can easily put it into a percent, right? And just bam, percent, done. That's why when things are in these, when you have a factor, you would not believe. I'm totally spitting when I talk because I'm getting so excited about this. So embarrassing, but thank gosh you cannot actually see. So at least I'm not spitting on you in class where I'm like, yeah, fractions, percents. All right, so looking at this, if you get something right in here, if you have a fraction that ends in this, it's pretty easy to turn it into something over 100. Watch, let's take a peek. That fraction that we had was 3/5. 3/5. Guys, if I make an equivalent fraction to this, I want to put something over 100. Fortunately, we know 5 goes into 100 20 times. 5 times 20 gives us 100. If we do it on the bottom, we got to do it to the top. That's the rule of fractions. So we're going to do this times 20. We get 60. Guys, 60 over 100 is 60%. So 3/5 is 60%. Bam, you have solved this problem. If you have 1 over 4, all right, we got to put it over 100. 4 goes into 100 25 times. We're going to multiply this by 25. We get 25 over 100, which is 25%. Yay. Oh, I messed up there. So now you can put those, if you have it over 100, you can put it into a percent. Bam. I'm going to try and stick to fractions that go with these in the book, because once we get into fractions that don't have that at the bottom, we got to do a little bit of extra work. Blah. And it's not too terrible, but I want you to get used to these first. So if you have 7 over, let's say 7 over 25, 7 over 25, we can turn that into a percent by 25 goes into 100 4 times. So 25 times 4 gives us 100. Do it on the bottom, do it on the top. I get 28, which means 7 over 25 is 28%. 28%. All right. So let's take a look at some of those other problems then. Going back, let's see, that was B. Yeah, because B, I got a little too excited there. All right. So B, we figured out was 3/5, right? So we do the math here. 5 goes into 100 times 20 times 20 gives us 60. That gives us 60%. So that was the answer to B, just in case you did not catch that, because I didn't write B on there. All right, so that was B. Let's do C. Half of a whole is what percent of the whole? Half of a whole, so here's a whole circle and half of it. What's that percent? Guys, that's the one I wanted you to memorize. 50% is 1/2. 1/2 and 50% are the same thing. Same thing. All right, so let's take a look at the next one. Draw and shade circles to illustrate each fraction, mixed number, or percent. D, 2/3. All right, if we draw a circle and we divide it into 3 slices of pie and I eat 2 of them, it's gonna look like this. All right, E. 75%, 75%. Well, I know that that's 75 over 100, because remember, anything that's in percent, we can put it over 100, right? Think 75 and 25 and 50 are another one I'm gonna want you to memorize besides the 50. 25 and 75, think quarters. If you have 75 cents out of $1, you have 3 out of 4 quarters. So those are the same thing there, okay? Be real careful with that. That's a good one to memorize. If I draw that, I've got my circle with 4, and then I have, and that's 3/4. So that's 75%. Again, a good one to memorize. Maybe write that in your notebook and circle it. All right, the next one is a mixed number. Mixed number. This is 2 and 3/4. What that means is we have 2 whole ones. Here's a whole, here's a whole, and then we have part of another whole. And that is broken up into 4, and we have 3 of them. So that would be represented for F. For points G and E. All right, so I'm gonna bring the book back over. Let's do this. All right, so taking a look at G and H represent which mixed numbers on the number lines. That first one there is, get this. All right, so that first guy there, it's between 4 and 5, so it's gonna be 4 and something, right? There are 3 chunks between 4 and 5. So it is going to be 4, oh, that's too high up, sorry about that. 4, and the chunks are cut into thirds, and we have 1 2/3, 4 and 2/3. For H, it comes between 13 and 14, so it's going to be 13 and now we count those. There's 1 2 3 4. There's 4 chunks, and we stopped on the first one there, so it's 1/4, 13 and 1/4. All right, for this guy, you're going to want to measure it. Find that to the nearest find xz to the nearest 16th, which means you're going to want to go from x all the way to z. We take this, we're going to do that. We get this guy right here. It looks like we've got, I'm dropping things left and right here. It's between 3 and 4, right? So it's going to be 3 and hold. Oh my God. I shouldn't be allowed out. What is going on? Let me erase these guys so I have somewhere to write this. All right, so it's going to be 3 and out of 16, right? We got 1 2 3 4 5 16ths. 3 and 5/16. Excellent work. Any questions? Go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, good work. Appreciate it. Have fun.